Bernard-Henri Lévy is here. He is an author, journalist, and philosopher. His writings encompasses the worlds of ideas, culture, and global politics. He recently wrote an impassioned plea to French voters to reject the far-right candidates in Sunday's local election runoffs. Yet an alliance of conservative parties were the clear winners, making a comeback for former President Nicolas Sarkozy. I'm pleased to have Bernard-Henri Lévy, my good friend from Paris, join us once again, because he's always doing interesting things, including politics and war and culture and art. Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell me about French elections. Sarko is back.
Sarko is back and Le Pen is down. Le Pen was predicted to be the first party of France. Everybody said that she would have a big victory.
Reading about it, Sarkozy came under some criticism because he refused to say certain things before the runoff.
It's a false trial. Sarkozy said very clearly that he has nothing in common with National Front. He said it, that between
But
him...
he wasn't prepared to join an alliance against the National Front.
Of course.
Which the socialists wanted him to do.
I know. But what he did, what he said very clearly, was that between Le Pen and him, between the extreme right and the Republican right, it was a fight till the last drop of blood. That it was a merciless fight. Sarkozy said that very clearly. At last, this is very important, because in Europe, the biggest enemy of the fascists, of the extreme right, has always been not the left, but the right, the moderate
the right. Of the center.
The right of the center, yes. Yeah. And Marine Le Pen made it clear so many times that the one she wanted to kill, at least politically, was Nicolas Sarkozy and the moderate right. So the event of yesterday is that everyone in the French right understood this law of French politics, that the extreme right hates and wants to kill the right.
How much popular approval does she have?
She has a lot, and this is a shame for France. She has a lot, 1 voter out of 4.
25%.
25%, which is frankly big. We are the unique country in Europe where there is such a support for an extremist, xenophobic, racist party. But she is on the decline already. A lot of people, again, predicted 30, 32, 33%. She did not get them. Because the French voters begin to understand not only that she is this xenophobic and racist woman, but also that this party, which pretends to be a clean party, is full of dirty people. I made a piece a few weeks ago.
Meaning anti-Semites and racists and everything else?
Not only anti-Semites, racist, and just crooks.
Right.
There is a quantity among the candidates of the National Front of people who are just hooligans, who had some problems with justice, who were found to have weapons in their trunk, and so on.
But is France any different than Austria or other countries where we've seen this strongly nationalistic, far-right possibility?
The difference is that National Front is more right, more far-right than a lot of European parties. Look at the far-right English party.
Yes.
They don't want to make alliance in Brussels, in the European Parliament, with Marine Le Pen. She is a sort of black sheep, even for the extreme right in Europe. Her best ally in Europe is Putin. But except Putin, nobody wants to shake hands.
Well, does Putin want her alliance? Does Putin care that Marine Le Pen likes him?
I think so, because
he doesn't reject her.
No, more than that, he financed her. As you know, there was a revelation a few months ago, that Marine Le Pen came to a Russian bank to find the money to fund her campaign. So, number one. And number two, Putin having as one of his targets to destabilize European Union and to break the European Union building Marine Le Pen is an ally for him, like the Jobbik in Hungary, like the extreme right in Belgium, and so on. So, of course, for Putin, there is a sort of black alliance, a sort of spectrum of parties, which are his fifth column in the West, and he uses them as a big leverage.
So what does this portend for the election in France, the presidential election coming up? Does it mean Sarkozy is now the favorite?
My hope is that Marine Le Pen, in France, as you know, we have 2 rounds.
Right.
My hope is that Marine Le Pen,
and then a runoff.
yes, will not be at the second round. After that, will it be Hollande? Will it be Sarkozy? It is a choice between Republicans. It is a choice between people who really like France. Problem of Le Pen is that she does not like France. She is not a patriot. You know, she is not a French patriot. So a race, a campaign between 2 real patriots as Hollande and Sarkozy is okay. One may be for Hollande, another may be for Sarkozy. It is a civilized arm wrestle. Le Pen is something else. So the target today for people like me is that Le Pen is not at the second round.
Here's what I don't understand. I want you to explain this to me on American television, which will be seen in France, as you know. How is it that you were very close to Ségolène Royal, helped her with her debate preparation when she was running against Sarkozy?
Yeah.
He won.
Yeah.
She lost.
Yeah.
You have said you're a man of the left.
Yeah.
Then Sarkozy wins,
Yeah.
and then Libya comes up.
Yeah.
There is the possibility of a bloodbath in Benghazi.
Yeah.
Gaddafi is on the march, and you play a role because you have friendship access to him, and you get France to rally, and played a principal role. There's a documentary film about you. So there you are with the French president playing a role. Then he's defeated, surprise, surprise, by François Hollande, the former partner and parent of children with Ségolène Royal, who's still in that party. Next election, so Hollande wins. Lo and behold, you are now sort of a friend of, have connections with François Hollande. That's today. How do you do that? In America, you don't sort of advise one president or have friendship with one president so you can urge certain kinds of action. B, the next president of a different party, you can urge and have access. And now,
I don't advise anyone. To advise means to do things behind the curtain, secretly, discreetly. I don't do that.
What do you
I
do?
express myself always on quite a loud voice. So I say what I think. I plead what I believe, and I try to tell it to Sarkozy when he's in office, to Hollande when he's in office, and to American State Secretary Hillary Clinton
I understand that.
at the time of
but
Libya.
No, but you do it much differently. You try to get them to take a course of conduct. That is, you urge them to take a course of conduct. You say to Sarkozy, it'll be blood on the French flag if you do not take action.
Of course, because I was in Benghazi. I happened to be in Benghazi. I was an eyewitness. I could say what was just in front of my eyes, which would have been one of the worst bloodbaths of the last decades.
Yeah.
So I said it to Sarkozy. Today, I was recently in front of Mosul in Iraq, in Kurdistan. I was with the Peshmergas, with those valiant soldiers who are Kurds, who are fighting against ISIS. The only boots on the ground fighting against ISIS.
No, that's not true.
Boots on the ground, not planes.
No. They're Iraqi militias on the ground.
They are blocked. They are blocked out of Tikrit. The real guys who are really creating some casualties on the other side, the best, let's say, the best soldiers are Kurds and Peshmergas. So what did I do? I did this story. I went to see President Hollande very openly, not as an advisor, And I said that it would be a honor for France to receive the Peshmergas, to arm them, and
You
to
said
make
it would be
an
an honor
alliance.
to France to do this.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, it would be a honor for France to make an alliance in this area of the world with those who risk their lives to defend civilizations. I saw these Kurds and I was really so impressed by these men, not young men, some had our
I agree.
age,
Yeah.
and they were fighting in a such brave way.
Agree.
So
everybody talks about both the
so what did I do?
the courage and the fighting ability
I
of the
convinced François
Peshmerga
Hollande to receive them this Wednesday.
So
They will be in Paris.
the Peshmerga are coming. Who's coming?
A delegation of 7 commanders,
These are the military commanders.
military commanders, yes, who
And-
hold the front line in front of Mosul.
And they're coming to Hollande to ask what?
They are coming to Hollande probably to introduce themselves, to propose a political alliance, or to express the political alliance which exists already, and maybe to ask for some military means in order to proceed.
You mean supplies and
Supplies of
and
weapons. I
support.
think that if we all say that ISIS is a danger for civilization in general,
It is.
are we serious or not? If we are serious,
Give
then
support.
we have to give
but
support.
you know, one of their central complaints is they're not getting enough support from the
I know.
United States.
That's why I bring them to Paris. That's why I invited them to Paris with my little magazine Règles du Jeu, who is the host of these 7 commanders, and they will be received by François Hollande. We'll see what happens. They need support.
Does he see him at Élysée Palace or where?
At Élysée Palace, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, they deserve support, and it is our best interest,
France's best interest or
the West.
The West.
The West, that one of us, France or America, gives this support. It's crucial. It's crucial if we think that ISIS is this danger.
Well, I think they both think it's that danger. It just simply seems that France actually, in an interesting way, Hollande, surprise to some, has taken a stronger stand and been more willing to employ French forces than expected.
Hollande has a tough and clear foreign policy, not only on Kurdistan and against ISIS, in Syria.
In Africa?
Remember 2013, August 29,
Right.
the French planes were about to take off when Obama changed his mind. When he decided that he had to consult the Congress and so on. So France was in advance. Look at Ukraine and Putin. France also is on a very firm and tough position. Hollande understands that Putin is not only a good chess player and not only a Russian nationalist, but that he has real deep political targets. And Africa, yes. France today has a foreign policy which is good for France, good for the West, and sometimes taking the leadership. I'm happy of that.
But you're repeating history. You're doing, the same thing you did at the time in Libya. You brought the rebels to Paris to see Sarkozy and to try to arrange a meeting with Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State. I mean, no one like doing this except you that I know of, who's sort of flying around, bringing people in to see the head of state in his home country, trying to get him to meet these people and take action. I know of no one else that does that who's a private citizen.
Let's say that I have time, that I have energy, and that I have strong beliefs.
Yes.
And some means maybe. But 20 years ago, in Bosnia, Sarajevo, when Sarajevo was bombed, I did the same with the current president of this time, Izetbegovic. I brought him to François Mitterrand. It was even.
So what you do is bring foreign fighters to Paris to meet the head of state.
What I do is I try to do my job of public intellectual, which is to go on the ground, to see things with my own eyes.
Not just to write, but to act.
To write, to see. To write and then to draw the consequences.
But you're not satisfied just to write.
No.
You're different.
Yes, because I think that just writing may be useless if you don't try to draw the precise consequences. If you really believe that the siege of Sarajevo is a horror. Then you have to bring the guy, President Izetbegovic, to François Mitterrand and to put the photos of the children massacred on the office of François Mitterrand. Commander Massoud, you remember the Afghan Commander Massoud?
Northern Alliance.
I tried to do the same thing. I did it in a way with President Chirac and Prime Minister Jospin. Maybe it's a French speciality, but it's the way it is. It's the way.
But what's amazing is they receive you, and they let you make the case.
I don't know. Yes, yes. It may surprise you, but
doesn't surprise me because I know all about it. But I mean, it's a very positive thing. So what happens if there is a general election in France, and it's Sarkozy versus Hollande? Where is your support?
I will do the same. What I did 3 years ago, I voted Hollande.
Because you are at heart a man of the left.
Because I'm at heart a man of the left, because I think that on some very crucial issues, today for me the West has two enemies, ISIS on one side and the new Russia on the other side.
The Putin Russia.
The Putin Russia is a real stake and a real adversary also.
So what are you doing over there in Ukraine with the president of Ukraine? What was your purpose over there?
My purpose was to, since the beginning, to support the president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, because he's a good man, because he's a valiant president, and because he is in the front line of this battle against Putinism, which is a very bad ideology for the West. And not only ideology, Putin did a thing in the recent month and even weeks, which was unprecedented in Europe. He said that if the West had acted in Crimea, he would have retaliated with nuclear means. He said to Copenhagen...
Well, he said he was about ready to put them on alert.
Yes, but what does it mean? About Copenhagen, when he said that if the Danish vessels... if Copenhagen accepted NATO installment of missiles and so on, there will be retaliation on Danish vessels. He violated more than one time the Aryan space.
So what should be the response of the West to all of this aggressiveness by Putin?
To support clearly Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, to show Putin that...
Well, if it's a NATO country, that's not going to be an issue. They're going to support a NATO country. They're bound by agreement to do that. Ukraine, not so.
Ukraine, not so. So that's why I don't think that Ukraine should come inside NATO. But my belief since the first day is that we have to show to Putin that the case of Ukraine is the case of Europe. That the Ukrainians are the sentinels of Europe in this part of the world.
But you don't deny that Russia has had, for a long time, an influence in Ukraine.
So what?
They have a sphere of influence.
France has an influence in Algeria. It does not means that I believe that Algeria is forever belonging to France. Thanks God, Algeria is free. It's a great independent country. Influence in the past does not mean anything. England had influence in India. It does not mean that I deny that India is a sovereign and strong country. We don't care.
Well, but some say that the best out for this is that there are those who argue that Putin is looking for a way out, and that the West should help him find a way out. That he overreacted to what happened when the president of Ukraine had to flee the country and go to Moscow, and that Putin then got...
I know, but you know
what?
To help Putin to find a way out. Okay, if Putin wants to find a way out, he's a grand garçon, he's a good guy, he's a big guy, he can find the way out himself. We are not going to show Putin the way out. In 38, in 39, even if the situations are not comparable, we had a lot of people who said we have to help Hitler to find a way out. And you know where all that led. So, no, we have to show Putin what is the limit? What is the red line? No, not where is the way out.
And what's, that people like Henry Kissinger and others are arguing that what you want to do is not, you don't want to corner them sometimes. You want to give them a way to retreat.
But Putin was never cornered. since 14 years, there was so many occasions. All American administrations, all European administrations gave to Putin hand, gave to Putin support, associated Russia to military maneuvers with NATO, commercial links, and so on. Never Russia has been so little isolated and so little humiliated than in the last 15 years. So this is a false narrative. Putin being humiliated is an argument of propaganda, has nothing to do with reality. And we should not accept this narrative, which is pure propaganda.
You come to America a lot, so how do you assess how the president is handling both crises, the crisis in the Middle East of an advancing ISIS and the crisis in the Ukraine and that part of Europe from an advancing Russia, supporting separatists?
I'm not sure that the current administration takes the real dimension of the threat on, for sure, in Ukraine, and I can tell you that this is the general feeling on the Maidan, among the citizens of Ukraine. They are very sad.
That the
they are
president
very
is not defending
disappointed.
them more?
Of course, that their will to embrace the West, their will to defend the Western flags are not taken more seriously.
Well, they want the same thing. They want the capacity to defend themselves.
Of course,
They're not asking
know,
not asking for troops from the West.
No. They know, the Ukrainians, Poroshenko knows that there is an absolute law of the wars. War stops only when you have a balance of force. When there is a balance of force, when we help the aggressed country to balance the aggressor, then the war has a chance to cool down. If you leave this unbalanced situation as it is today, the war will go on, and we will have some deaths again and again and again.
Did you know Boris Nemtsov?
Yes, I met him 15 years ago. He was a great guy. He was a real Russian patriot. He liked his country. He hated to see his country involved in such a dirty war in Ukraine. And he was killed
By,
I don't know. I'm not a policeman, I'm not a judge, but it is impossible to imagine that in the country which is Russia today, impossible to imagine that if there was a decision to kill Nemtsov, that it was unknown from the authorities. It is impossible to believe. Russia is a controlled country.
so that if they didn't do it, they knew that it might happen.
At least there was a sort, and besides that, there is such a campaign, a hot campaign, demonizing the opponents, transforming them in enemies of the country, that of course the consequence is that when you say on and on every channel of TV that Nemtsov is a devil, that he is a bad Russian and so on, you take the risk that a crazy guy takes a pistol and shoots. So there is at least an indirect responsibility of those who fuel this machine of propaganda in Russia, for sure. At least there is that.
So while you're doing all this, how do you have time to write books about art and write a play starring occasionally yourself?
This is most of my time, thanks God, is devoted to that, is devoted to write. I was listening to these two gentlemen curating this great exhibition in Gagosian Gallery. This is what I love most, to write about Mondrian or Jackson Pollock or Rauschenberg. This is my deepest will and task. But a public intellectual is someone who sometimes puts the pen on the table, and when there is an emergency, who decides to take the emergency. But the real time is devoted to art, is devoted to write this play about Europe, which I would love to perform in America, in New York. If somebody has the idea,
If you have a theater, call us.
He's welcome. He's mostly welcome.
Okay, finally this.
This is the core of my life, of course.
What are the lasting impact of what happened at Charlie Hebdo? What are the consequences of that?
The
Cruel act.
The consequence of that might be that Marine Le Pen is cooling down, as we said at the beginning of this conversation. There was suddenly a sort of consciousness in the depth of the French people that one could not continue to play games with these terrible ideas, racism, anti-Semitism. It is words, and one day the words have the weight of bombs and of shots. So there is this deep understanding today in France that you cannot just play with words, and that those who did put the fire in the brains, who did throw the fire in the heads, should be stopped in a cool way, should be restrained. And that is what is happening today. We have some spokesmen of the new anti-Semitism in France, like Dieudonné or Soral. You hear them a lot less since the Charlie Hebdo affair. They give some shows in some cities in France. There is less shows performed by these guys. There is an understanding in the wisdom of the French people that they have played enough with these terrible ideas. So it is not a miracle, of course. The French people has not become all of a sudden a people of angels, but there is a red light. There is a sort of warning which has rung in all the consciousness of my country, with Charlie Hebdo on the one side and the Jewish grocery Hyper Cacher on the other side. The first one were killed because they were doing their job, Charlie Hebdo. The others were killed because they were doing their shopping, the grocery. So there is this feeling today in France that you cannot indefinitely play with these words, arguments, and ideas. And this is a good thing. These poor cartoonists and Jews, they did not die completely for nothing. In a way, yes, you always die for nothing, and it is always but their death did at least produce this.
They died with courage, actually.
Yes, of course. And we entered maybe in a sort of new period in French ideas since then. Maybe.
Thank you for coming. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Bernard-Henri Lévy, thank you for joining us. See you next time.